Morning folks, I hope you all had a good week. Just woke up this morning with the thought in my mind, I've seen it a lot, it happens rather a lot, people say that boxing's a dying sport. And I can kind of see where they're coming from, but people have been saying boxing's been dying since Muhammad Ali retired. It finally retired in 1981, everyone said, well, boxing's going to die, this is the end of boxing. Then of course the four kings of Duran, Leonard, Hagler and Hearns came along, and then Mike Tyson came along, and so on and so forth, and we had a great era. And then when those guys finally packed it in, everyone said, oh, boxing's dead. When I first got into boxing in 1990, so what, 33 years ago, everybody said boxing was dead. Everybody, my grandfather, people I knew, older relatives, my uncles and that, excuse me, they said that boxing was dying. It's a dead sport, it's not as big as it was. And then the likes of Eubank, Eubank, Ben, Collins, obviously Mike Tyson came back in the 90s after his stint in prison. And Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. It was another little golden era. Tommy Morrison, I know he wasn't the best, but he was a draw. Everybody knew him. And obviously Frank Bruno was kicking about, and he always drew numbers. He wasn't the best, but he drew numbers. And I just find it fascinating. And then of course in the 2000s, obviously after Lennox Lewis retired in 2004, a lot of people said that boxing was dead. There was going to be, that was it. And then, for a little while we had, forgive me, I've got a fucking stinking cold, if you can't tell. Anthony Joshua came along, Carl Froch was there. Calzaghe was drawing good numbers on TV. To me, boxing is very cyclical. It takes one big fight to bring everybody back, if that makes sense. The big thing that is killing boxing at the moment is the big fights not happening. The big fights, like obviously we all want to see Fury against Usyk. We all want to see Terence Crawford against Errol Spence Jr. Those are the fights we want. These are the big fights that we need to happen. And for various political and personal reasons, they don't get made. The women's boxing, however, is flourishing because they're not afraid to fucking fight each other. In a lot of ways, I said this the other week, the women are actually putting the men to shame because they don't care. I mean, there's talk now at the moment of Katie Taylor fighting Chantel Cameron. Brilliant. Two unbeaten ladies, top of their divisions. Why the fuck not? It makes sense. Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall last year. They could have spent 3 or 4 years avoiding each other. Well, what's the point? All these. That does what make me sick. And a lot of people. Oh well, UFC's better. But is it though? I mean, the money, from what I understand now, I'm going to hold my hands up. I don't know a huge amount about UFC. I watched the odd fight. I followed it when it first started in the 90s. I saw the odd videotape VHS that was passed around, and when Dan Severn and Tank Abbott were in it. That's how long ago it was. I'm showing my age now. And Ken Shamrock, people like that. And I've seen the odd fight, when Brock Lesnar did it. I used to watch Brock Lesnar fight, and I've seen the odd fight, Paddy Pimblett, Conor McGregor fights. I will watch the big ones, but I'm not an expert in it at all. But even that, you've got the big stars are leaving UFC now because of money and political reasons. And then you've got dodgy decisions. I mean, people criticise boxing for dodgy decisions, and I do all the time because it is shocking sometimes. Some of the decisions that get handed in by the judges, and you go, you know what, this is bullshit. No wonder people think this is garbage. But Paddy Pimblett, his last fight, nobody thought he won that one, apart from him. And I don't know anything about I'm not an expert in UFC. I don't know a huge amount. I'm not qualified enough to give an opinion on it most of the times. I just watch it. And even I thought he lost. So if a layman like me can watch that and think, the guy lost, maybe there's something to it. And everybody else is saying it. So UFC is, I mean, obviously, historically, the big guys all tend to fight each other. But the lack of money, and then of course Dana White started up this fucking slap fighting league, which is absolute bollocks. I mean, I've seen clips of it because it's fucking everywhere. It's all over YouTube, it's all over Instagram. Everywhere you go, there's a fucking video of slap fighting floating around, which is absolute garbage. I just don't understand that. That will never. Well, it probably will take off because there's plenty of fucking inbreds out there who will watch it. So, but I was just feeling quite philosophical. I mean, this morning, thinking back. You know, is boxing really dying? Obviously, somebody like me would say, "Oh no, of course it's not." But then you think, well, there's a lot of hard, fights. We've had a good year so far. We're only in March. We've had a good run of great fights so far, and that make you go, yes, this is why I love boxing. But man on the street wouldn't have a fucking clue who Mark Magsayo is. He's fighting Brandon Figueroa tonight. That's a big fight to people like me. Man on the street, who the fuck's that? Who? You know. So, that does put it into perspective quite a bit. And obviously, it becomes a niche thing when it all goes on things like DAZN. I mean, when it was on ITV, everyone tuned in to watch Amir Khan's fights. Everyone tuned in to watch Carl Froch fight. And even on Sky, even though it was pay-per-view, not everyone has Sky, but more people have Sky than DAZN. I mean, I've said the story before, my grandfather didn't know what the fuck DAZN was. I told him about it. What? What's that? He has Sky, he knows what Sky is, he watches Sky. That's how he knows big fights are coming up. Well, we always traditionally used to, because he used to watch it on ITV, BBC way back. And he even had, when it was on Setanta Sport over here, there was a fight every weekend from America and from over here. So BT Sport, their boxing coverage is pretty rubbish. I know they had their pay-per-view event last week with the Jake Paul, Tommy Fury fight. That's once in a blue moon. And obviously before that, you had the Tyson Fury's fights are on there, but obviously his last fight against Chisora, that is the sort of thing that is killing boxing, because that was garbage. That doesn't prove anything. That was nonsense. So it's little things. It's things like that. Well, I say little things, big things like that are killing the sport. So we need these fucking guys, and I know they're counting their millions, so they don't really give a fuck. Let's be honest. People like Tyson Fury doesn't give a shit about the fans. Why the fuck should he? He makes millions fighting Chisora, fighting Dillian White. He could make millions fighting Deontay Wilder again, But the only fight we want to see is Usyk. So if I tried to experiment. I walked around my workplace the other day, and I said, right, to everybody and anybody, name me a boxer. And the names that came up, I said current boxer, and the names that came up were Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Nobody else said anything else. It was just those two names. Sorry, one person said Conor Benn, because he'd been on. It's been all over the news, obviously, about his failed drug tests. But apart from that, nobody knew. They were the three names I got. One person said Conor McGregor. Everybody else, Conor Benn. Fuck, I haven't been drinking, honestly. Conor McGregor, Conor Benn. Sorry. And everybody else said Fury and Joshua. So they're the only household names. And they don't fight each other. Again, if they fought each other, okay, what would it mean now that Joshua's had 3 losses? He's got a fight coming up next month. It probably wouldn't mean a lot. Fury wins, so what? But it would be a big event, and it should have happened by now. But all the big names avoiding each other. The welterweights, no one gives a shit about anybody else apart from Spence and Crawford. And they just tap dance around each other, and they all blame each other for the fight's not happening. Look, who cares? You can make it happen. If the ladies can fucking do it, the men can do it. I know there's probably more money with the men, so it's a little bit more difficult, but overall, does it fucking matter? It's like years ago with Tyson and, over 20 years, Tyson and Lewis, when they finally fought. Both ones, the thing that everybody hid behind was the promoters and the TV stations. They fucking worked it out. If there's plenty of money to be made, they can work it out. The promoters and the TV stations can work things out, That's just a cover a lot of the time. Oh, can't fight him, he's under the PBC umbrella, and I fight for Showtime. My fights are on Showtime. Fuck off. Fuck off. I've probably just given a bad example. I was just plucking fucking names out of my head then. But it's bullshit. If a fight can happen, I mean, the women again, Baumgardner and Maya, back in October. two different promoters. Yeah, one fought for Eddie Hearn, one fought for Bob Arum. They made it happen. It can happen. So is boxing dying? Probably not. At the moment, it's on a fucking slump. Again, it's cyclical. It needs a massive fight to happen, and even a crossover fight. I mean, the Jake Paul thing last week with Tommy Fury. That was a crossover, and it brought people in. Like I say, my great niece loved it. She was glued to it. She's fucking 10. My sister's kids, my nieces and nephews, they love it because they're all teenagers and younger. They all know who Jake Paul is, so it was a big thing to them. So a big crossover fight if like the McGregor thing with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather a few years ago. It was a big thing. Everyone was talking about it because it was a big. I think that's what boxing needs at the moment. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, and I hate non-boxers taking part in these things against boxers because I just don't like it. It's just my personal thing. If you like it, that's cool. But I think it says it all when the headlines are all going to YouTubers rather than actual boxers. That highlights that there's a problem here. So we'll see. I mean, boxing is an old sport. It's what we call modern boxing now. The rules, London Prize rules, and all that go back 140 odd years. And obviously bare knuckle goes back even further. So we'll see. I mean, will it die? I doubt it very much. There'll always be somebody like me watching it. My family will continue to watch it as they go on. There will always be somebody like me watching it. But it's quite sad. It's not the household sport it used to be. I mean, talking to my grandfather, he talks about he's obviously an old man now. He talks about Marciano. He talks about Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman. He talks about all of those, Roberto Duran. They were all on TV all the time and in the papers back then. So, but we'll see. So, right, that's enough out of me. It was just my weekly rant. I shall be doing a review of the Brandon Figueroa Mark Magsayo fight, which is happening tonight. That's a good one. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we can be spoilt with another classic banger for the year. So take care, folks. Enjoy the fights. Take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.